ingredient to behavioral change: habits. While self-awareness is an important step in understanding what you want to change, habits is what is going to get you that change. Now, from neuroscience, we know that it's close to impossible to deconstruct old wiring. So rather than hoping to change old habits, the power really lies in creating new ones. But this is easier said than done. Let me be clear. It is difficult to change an ingrained behavior. Even for the most productive and disciplined among us, undoing something that has become an automatic part of who we are takes more than an overnight effort. And you've probably noticed that once we've successfully made that change, we then have to make other adjustments to our lives to ensure that we continue to maintain it, which is often a whole other challenge in itself. At its core, success in changing and maintaining a behavior rarely occurs without a system. When there isn't the right framework in place, we face a greater likelihood of derailing our hard-earned progress. And while this is deeply personal to each and every person and something I coach my clients on in my sessions, I thought it might be useful to share some habits that we should stay away from. So number one, relying on willpower. Think about the last time you vowed to resist a temptation. Perhaps you didn't want to check your phone every 15 minutes, or perhaps you were adamant about not reaching for a chocolate bar at 3 p.m. Now think about how difficult it must have been not to glance at your phone when it's within reach, or not to walk to the vending machine when you hit your afternoon slump. The research on whether we have finite or infinite willpower is inconclusive, but experts do generally agree that you can't change and sustain a habit if you rely on your willpower alone. So have a think about what else you can change about your surrounding that makes it easier for you to perform this change on a daily basis. Charles Duhigg, the journalist and author of The Power of Habit, calls this your cue. Basically, it's a trigger to perform that particular habit. If you don't want to reach to a sugary treat at 3 p.m., have a box of herbal tea ready at your desk. When 3 p.m. comes around, that's your cue to pour yourself a cup of tea instead of walking to the vending machine. Number two, focusing on negative goals. Sometimes it's not your process that lets you down, but the habit that you want to change in the first place. For starters, not eating chocolate to beat your afternoon slump is a harder goal than swapping chocolate for herbal tea when you reach the designated time. We know this from neuroscience. Your brain wants to find routines that have succeeded in the past and that allow you to repeat those actions again in the future without having to think about them explicitly. So rather than giving up something, think about introducing something in its place. Number three, using the same strategy in different circumstances. So just because we are creatures of habit, it's natural to assume that when we do manage to adopt and sustain a desirable behavior, that same strategy will work when we want to make another behavioral change. But that's not always the case. Sometimes the system that got you to change one behavior might not work for another. For example, if you want to stop checking your email first thing in the morning, you might decide to substitute another activity in its place. But if you want to stop your after-work Netflix binge, simply deciding you will go for a run might not be as effective. You might need to introduce another reinforcement, such as meeting a friend and booking an exercise class together. Number four, not forgiving yourself for slipping up. I'm familiar with this. Of course, even the best laid plans fail sometimes. You might have stuck to a perfect no-screen nighttime routine for 5 days, and then a big project lands on your desk and you find yourself in bed with your laptop before you go to sleep. Or you stuck to eating healthy throughout the week, but by Saturday you opt for the greasy takeout. Life happens. The perfectionist in you might be screaming to abandon your goals altogether, but try to see it in the bigger picture. Just because you might have temporarily veered off course doesn't mean that you can't start fresh the next day. Number 5, discontinuing small progress. Speaking of slip-ups, here is another habit that many perfectionists tend to fall into when they try to establish a behavior change. They focus too much time on the big goal and don't take the time to celebrate the small progress they made in the process. Here is what you need to know. Your brain responds to rewards. That means that the brain region linked to our performance of habits is most active at the beginning of a behavior when the habit is cued and at the end when it's rewarded. So let's say your goal is to run 5 kilometers 3 times a week. And this week you ran 1 kilometer on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Now, rather than focusing on how far you've gone towards your goal, think about how you can reward yourself for the progress you've made. It doesn't have to be big or expensive. It can be something as simple as making your favorite smoothie after your run. What habits are you currently trying to change? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Lastly, if you're finding my videos valuable, I've just put together an exclusive video training. It's for free, so if you'd like to keep learning and if you'd like to have access to bite-sized content in the form of videos, then click the link in my post.